Hi everybody, it's Michelle. I'm back in the background here. My camera's off today. It's not working properly, so we're just going to do it this way. If you're following along, the last lesson was agency creation. This is agency disclosure requirements. Some of these may pertain to Maryland specifically, but most are national. Most of these disclosure requirements are national. So don't let that Maryland persuade you from watching or using this as a study guide, okay? All right, let's go on if you're following along. By law, licensees are required to disclose their agency relationship, and this is true for every state. So just like I told you, this isn't specific to Maryland. Some of these things are, but most of them are for every state in the U.S. In Maryland, agency law applies to the sale or release of real property improved by up to 4 single-family units. As a licensee in Maryland, the questions you need to be able to answer are who is required to receive the disclosure, when, why, and what form must the disclosure take. If you already know the answers to these questions, great. Now, I have my Virginia license already, so I know that some of these, and most of these, also apply to Virginia. And probably most states are the same way. This one right here might be only Maryland. But the rest of this can apply to all states. Okay, who must make the agency disclosure? All right, let's see. Let's go and look at some of these lesson resources. Now, these are free, and if you contact me on my website page and let me know what you need, and be specific what you need, because I have several videos on different subjects, so you need to be specific. Say, I want agency disclosure requirements download, please. This may be the first time you've heard about this, but disclosing which party you represent in a real estate action, it won't be the last, because after even in a year of becoming and practicing real estate, it will become second nature to you. You must make a disclosure to any party you represent in a transaction, and this goes for any state, by the way. But some things are more specific to Maryland, such as the 1 to 4 unit of residential property, or leases greater than 125 days. You must use the written understanding whom real estate agents represent. This is in any state. Everyone to whom you must disclose agency must receive their own form. You may or may not use a buyer-signed form to disclose agency to a seller. If this sounds like a foreign language to you, just hold on and we're going to break it down more. Okay, I know if you've never been in real estate, this can seem a little overwhelming, but it's really not. Basically, whenever you do any kind of transaction for a buyer or a seller, you must disclose and give them something to sign. You need to get them to sign that you're going to represent them. Now, if you can't get them to sign anything, which happens, you still must represent them represent them honestly as possible. But you need to make it clear that if they're going to continue working with you, that they need to sign something for legal purposes, and so that you can represent them and market them in the best way possible. Because it does happen where some people are not ready to sign anything right away. They just want to look at a house, right? Or you're just coming over to do a breakdown of a comparative analysis of their home for them. You're going to go in there with a marketing plan if you're going to sell somebody's house. And they may not sign an agency agreement with you that day. They might be checking out 3 or 4 other realtors and making a decision. This is somebody's property. It's a big investment, and they want you to know what you're doing. Now, if you don't have any experience with real estate, the way you deal with this is you tell them that you're on a team, and you are on a team. If you're working with a brokerage, everybody in that brokerage is is working together to accomplish the same goal. In eXp Realty, we have shares, so everybody wants everybody to win because it makes the shares go up in the stock and everybody gets more money eventually. So it's not like this competitive field where we don't want you to get any people and we don't want you to sell. We're going to help you, and we're going to help you get all the documents filled out correctly. This is not like a competition. So those are some of the ways that you can get these people to, your buyers or sellers, to sign things. You tell them you're on a team, and you're not lying. You are on a team. All right, I'm not going to read that. Keep in mind that you need not wait until the first scheduled face-to-face to present the agency disclosure form. Nowadays, we're in a Zoom environment right now. You can do stuff by Zoom and email, and it still works the same way. All right, and even without the Zoom, you can do everything by email if you really wanted to. You can email the disclosure form, but you don't want to scare people, especially if they've never bought a home before, into signing all this paperwork, because it can be a little intimidating if you're giving them all this paperwork to sign the first day you meet them, and sometimes not even before you meet them. So you need to proceed with caution with that and use your best judgment. You're acting as a buyer's agent, and you're showing property to a client at a scheduled appointment. If the seller is showing, then you must provide that person with a copy of the understanding of whom real estate agents represent. If the seller's agent is at that showing, you must let them know that you are representing the buyer, because if not, that seller is going to go up to them and try and get them to sign something with them. That's why you need to do that, okay? You're acting as a buyer's agent. You're at an open house, and this person is not a scheduled face-to-face meeting. You do not need to provide the seller with a copy of the form. There's an exception to this. If at that open house your buyer's client expresses interest in the property, you are required to show the seller that they are already represented by you. You don't want that person that could cause major conflict right there. If this person signs with you and them because they didn't know any better. So it's your fiduciary duty to let the person at the open house know that they already have somebody representing them. If you're acting as a seller's agent at the seller's open home, you are required to display an open house disclosure sign. And these are all the details. Every state has their own rules on what needs to be on these signs. So this is specific to Maryland. Might be similar, but they're all slightly different. Some of them require the name, phone number, brokerage. Some of them require color. This one's specific in size. So, and most of the time they will have a question like this on the test, because I've taken this before and I've taken Virginia, so I already know this. The MREC, which is the Real Estate Commission, developed this method of disclosure to prevent agents from having to provide a potentially large number of disclosure forms in a short period of time. Okay, so this is a sign, and you got to put it on letterhead. And this is if you're doing an open house. All right, let's see. The agency notice is not a contract or an agreement, and it creates no obligation on the consumer's part. When you provide the agency disclosure, you should represent, not require, the person to whom you're providing it signs and dates, and if they decline to sign it, simply make a note of this on your agency disclosure. Write the date when you presented it and the reason they declined, and maintain this form with your other transaction forms. The Maryland Brokers Act requires that all real estate licensees keep documents obtained in connection with a transaction involving a brokerage service for at least 5 years. The date of closing, the date of listing, or the date of the end of a property management agreement. And every state has their own rules on keeping these documents, but I would suggest that you keep it at least 6 years just to cover yourself. Make sure you're keeping these things locked up. You got a lot of personal people's personal information, social security numbers, copies of things, and you could also scan it and keep it online too if you wanted to in a secure cloud space if you don't have room for a lot of paperwork. But I believe they want you to keep at least the hard copies. And this is for legal reasons too. If somebody comes back and says something 2 or 3 years later, suddenly they find something wrong with the house that wasn't disclosed, and you got like a lawsuit coming up. You need to be able to keep these documents to cover your own butt. The Understanding Whom Real Estate Agents Represent form is an informational document created by the State of Maryland's Real Estate Commission. Now, every state has their own, so don't let this fool you with the state of Maryland, because it could be any state that you're in. Every state has their own agency representative form, and it's created by your real estate commission in your state. Agents who represent the seller, agents who represent the buyer, and then we have dual agents, which is really nice if you can get one of those, because you're getting dual real estate commission. You're getting paid as the buyer and the seller, so you might be getting like 5%, which would be awesome. On page 2, the second paragraph explains the client's rights and responsibilities in working. They expect the licensee to act honestly, which would be you, to exercise reasonable care and diligence, and to maintain the confidentiality of their clients, which is what I was just talking about. You want to make sure their paperwork is secure. You don't have it laying all around for everybody to view their personal information. All these agreements, the real estate license must be in writing and include certain elements. It says the consumers and clients have a right to protect their own interests and make sure they understand the agreements they sign. And if they need to, they can consult with their own attorney, accountant for legal or tax advice. It's also followed by a notice. If they have a problem, they can file a complaint against the licensee, which would be you. And then they sign. There's a lot of information in this one little resource here. Who is required to disclose the agency relationship and who receives the disclosure? The licensee must disclose to a customer, to a potential seller client, if the licensee wants to a potential buyer, agency potential buyer. I'm going to go with this one. Let's see if I'm right. No, I'm not right. Okay. All right, let's try another one. Licensee must disclose to a party the particular that is not represented by the licensee. I think it's letting me click more than one. All right, let's see. There's only one correct answer. Okay. Remember, disclosure is giving notice of an existing agency relationship. All right, let's try this one. Okay, that's it. I was going to go with that last time, and I wasn't sure. So this is the answer. If you need a screenshot, there you go. There's your screenshot. Okay. In Maryland, what form must the agency disclosure take? Okay, it cannot be video. Well, I don't know if it could be video. I don't think so. I think it needs to be in writing. Some things just never change, okay? Writing is always good. When is the licensee required to make the agency disclosure? As soon as you meet them, right? Anytime prior to closing, the first meeting. That's your first scheduled fee. So I want to say that one. Yeah. And the reason is because now how we meet people is very different. We don't have to actually meet them in person. We can meet them in other ways. We can meet them on Zoom face to face. You don't have to be in person. The when of agency disclosure scenarios here. Okay, let's take a closer look at when agency disclosure must be made. The seller you represent is having an open house. Okay. the seller you represent. If the prospective buyer shown interest in the property engage you in a conversation, first of all, the seller should never be in an open house, just so you know, because people living there, they could just ramble about the house and say things that could cost them. Just saying, as a realtor in the past and still a realtor, you don't want your seller to be at the open house because, they could just, I've had this happen. Sellers, they have an attachment to the house, and people, the buyers will be asking them questions and they'll start rambling. Before you know it, they'll be saying things, and the buyer's like, oh no, I don't want, they'll start talking about the neighborhood, what's wrong with the house, and before you know it, we've lost a potential buyer. So, anyway, going down that rabbit hole, it says here the seller you represent is having an open house. No, don't do that. You have the open house. You, the seller's client representative, have the open house. All right, how much they be willing to pay? Are you required to present them with an understanding form? Yes. And I'm going to pretend like it's me being there, not my client. Okay, I don't know if that's what they're intending to say in this meeting here. All right, the seller you represent. See, okay, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stop. All right, I'm at the open house. Let's say I'm at the open house. This time there are a number of prospective buyers. Ooh, yay. But they are not asking any questions. Are you required to present them? No, maybe not. I don't know. Let's see. You are accompanying your buyer to an open house. A seller's agent is present. Your buyer looks around, is not really interested in the property. Are you required to present the seller's agent? Yes, I would think so. I don't, they're not asking any questions, so I don't know. Once again, you're accompanying, I don't know about this one. This one's kind of tricky. I mean, they see you walking in together, you can kind of assume that they're representing you, but you know what they say about assumptions, right? Assume asks out of you and me. So this one's kind of tricky. We'll see if we get it right or not. Once again, you are accompanying your buyer to an open house. And again, the seller's agent is present. This time, your buyer is interested in the property and wants the seller's agent to ask a few questions. Okay, I'm gonna switch this one because they're not asking any questions here. All right, you have a scheduled appointment to show your buyer a client a property. If the seller is at the showing, if the seller is at the showing, are you required to provide them with a copy? I mean, they're not asking any questions, so that's kind of tricky. But I'm going to say yes. All right, let's see how we did on this. Some of these are pretty tricky, and we did get one wrong, didn't we? Well, the first one, we didn't do too bad. Got them all. All right, let's see. We got this one wrong. Licensees are required to prominently display the approved open house disclosure sign in lieu of providing individual disclosures. Okay. Are you required? No. Okay. You're not required to present the form. All right. That's interesting. Okay, let's try it again. I don't know if I got these right or not. Okay, great. All right, so if you're doing a screenshot, let me go up here for you so you can take a screenshot of these questions if you want to go back and review them. This is what I normally do when I take tests, is I take screenshots and then I'll go back and look at them on my phone. This helps me with studying. All right, if you represent the seller at an open house, you must display the open house disclosure sign. Okay, which could be on a letterhead in Maryland. I don't know about other states, but and I can't remember what Virginia does. If you and your buyer client are at a scheduled showing and you and your buyer are at an open house and the buyer shows interest in the property, you need to provide the seller and the seller's agent with understanding who real estate agents represent for them. And this goes for any state, by the way. You need to do that. Okay, what is the license required to make the agency disclosure? Why is the licensee required to make the agency disclosure? Well, it is a polite thing to do, and it is the law. And actually, all of these things are good. Short and sweet and to the point. You must provide the agency's disclosure because it's law, and it's just the polite way too. By the way, the agency disclosure notice is not a contract. True. Bingo. Although required by law, the agency disclosure notice is not a binding contract and it does not create a brokerage. We're talking about the agency disclosure now. We're not talking about an agency creation form whom the real estate agent creates, okay? So don't get them mixed up. This is the other thing here. There's two different things over here. You got understanding whom real estate agents represent and then agency disclosure requirements. This one is a legal binding contract from what I believe, and this one is not. So that's why I just don't want you to get them mixed up because I know this is a lot of verbiage in one time. This does not create a brokerage relationship. It's just you're making it clear who represents who. Agency disclosures. Okay. I want to go back and open that other thing up. We're still doing agency disclosures here. Understanding whom the real estate agents request. Okay. This is not a contract. So, no, this is not a contract either. Let's see if we can make this bigger. Okay. This is basically what these things look like. And I always thought this was kind of a contract, but apparently I'm wrong. Okay. So this is just letting them know that this is what it basically looks like. Who is representing who. Okay. So this is what you would get them to sign so that you can cover them. Even though you're going to probably cover them anyway, you want them to agree so you can't sit and do all this work and then they go and get somebody else to do the closing. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you get them to sign this thing here, okay? Because you don't want to like go out and look at 50 houses and don't have anything signed, and then this person says, well, you know what? I picked a house and I got a different realtor and they're going to close, and then you did all that work and you did all that work and somebody else got the payment. So that's another reason why you need to get that signed and cover yourself. Okay. If the person you provide the agency's disclosure refuses to sign and date, you must terminate the transaction immediately. No, you don't. Okay. You can try and keep working with them. It's up to you. But just like I just said, if this continues for, I would say over 2 houses. If they keep calling you to view houses, it depends on how much time you value your time. But I mean, I'm saying after a day, I would maybe 2 times. If they go out with you 2 times, then they need to sign something. Because otherwise you're wasting your time. They could go out and get another agent. You must keep documents connected with a transaction involving a broker for at least 3 years from the date of closing, the date of the property management agreement. And no, it needs to be 5, and it needs to be at least 5. I would say 6 is even better. Okay, we got both of those right, okay? If they refuse to sign, which does happen, okay, you just keep on going, okay? I don't know how long you want to keep going. It'll be up to you to determine that. But if you feel like these people are wasting your time, then you need to get something in writing, okay? Don't keep taking them out to look at houses. As a new agent, a lot of them do that because they're desperate for clients. Don't be doing that. Do not waste your time. Your time is valuable. All right, this video is getting kind of long. I guess we're getting near the end now. Okay, we talked about the requirement to disclose agency, and we mentioned the understanding represent form a number of times. But what exactly is in these forms, okay? A description of the dual agent role, yes. I showed you a picture of it, of an example of what one looks like. A list of the seller and buyer rights and responsibilities. description of the type of sale, a description of the types of agents. This would be no. I want to say this one is, I want to say yes on that one too. Okay, an explanation of dual agency and what occurs if the party does not agree. All right, let's check them and see. Okay. Wow, almost got them all right. Okay. So everything's included in there except for the commission. All right, let's try this again. Yes. Yeah, I'll let you take a screenshot in 1 second. Agents who represent the buyer, the commission, no, that'll be somewhere else. An explanation of dual agency, yes. Okay. All right, let's go to the top here so you can take a screenshot if you would like. Okay. Now, if anyone is listening to this or disagrees or agrees with anything I'm saying, feel free to comment below if it helps anybody else. Okay, I'm not going to get mad at you. I would be impressed if you're still with me on this long of a video. Okay, so you're clear on agency disclosure requirements. If you entered into an agency relationship with a client tomorrow, would you know which form to present and why? And the why is easy. It's the law. Now, if you can only remember the who, what, and when, you'll be home free. All right. If you're staying with me on the next video, we're going to have our little unit exam. I don't know how long. Sometimes they're like 3 questions, okay? So, I don't know yet, but it'll be in the next video. So, come back, subscribe. I'll see you all later. Thank you for watching.